Phil.
And I'm Kate.
And this is The Underground, the official podcast partner of Glee 2024. So, without further ado,
let's get down and dirty. So today I am delighted that we are joined in our penultimate interview here at Glee 24 by Nat Boynton, who is the sales director at Happy Plants and founder and co-president of the YPHA. So welcome, Nat.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. So before we get on to the YPHA, can you tell us a bit about your role within Happy Plants?
Of course. Happy Plants is my family business, and some people out there might remember it as Porter's Fuchsias. Porter's Fuchsias has been operating since 1985, supplying originally fuchsias, and then since then a more diverse range of annual plants to garden centres and to supermarkets. I joined the business 10 years ago, in 2014, almost exactly 10 years ago, and was trying to generate some business with garden centres, and wasn't getting very far because people kept saying they didn't need fuchsias. But my dad in particular was quite protective of the brand, of the heritage.
Right, yeah.
So I waited for him to go on holiday and suggested, or when he came back, he was served a cup of tea in a mug that said Happy Plants, and I had a t-shirt that said Happy Plants, and he said, "What's this?" And I sort of slid under the door.
That's very clever.
Yeah, so more recently we've been Happy Plants and gone, thankfully, from strength to strength with that identity. We're all about trying to exactly what it says on the tin, provide plants that keep people happy, little pick-me-ups. I always say that we're the colouring in department of plant area. We do a lot of planted containers, baskets, products for younger people in particular.
Right.
Fantastic.
So give us, you talked about fuchsias. What are your kind of your key sellers, would you say?
So yeah, it was originally fuchsias, and my granddad certainly was a key character at a lot of flower shows and whatnot back in the day. Some of his fuchsias were 7-foot wingspan.
Oh my goodness.
So they were 3 people to move them.
Good Lord.
Yeah, but more recently, I like to think that we do 2 sets of products. One for the green-fingered traditional gardener, which is probably your packed bedding seed raised.
Right.
But the more modern part, and the part that sort of gets my heart, is I always say there's a clean-fingered gardener or a garden decorator, as Jane Lawler likes to call them.
Yes.
So it's more of something that's ready-made that they can put on the patio. So that starts with mixed planters and hanging baskets that are already in colour themes, packs to replant the colour theme on the hardware you've already bought. And then more recently, we have a product called Refillable, where you can just tip the bowl out into fresh compost, and any urn, any old hanging basket, if you've spent money on a fancy wood lodge planter or whatever, you can replant it without getting your hands dirty.
Right.
So green-fingered products and clean-fingered products.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, there are a lot of clean-fingered people around, a lot more than you'd think,
including me.
Really?
Yeah,
sure. Gosh, don't look at my
I'm
nails.
the black sheep of the family with my hort skills.
So it's a family business.
For sure.
Yeah. When did you join? Were you straight out of college, or did you go off and do something else?
I was booked to go back to university, but I was quite poorly at the end of university, so I took a gap year, and in that gap year I broke my arm really badly. They called it a humerus fracture. I didn't think it was very humorous, but it was displaced, and I had to have a traction brace on, and I was on tramadol. Got offered 12 quid for it in the pub, and whilst on tramadol had to be supervised, and basically spent my time sitting in the corner of my dad's office suggesting that he could be doing things differently. And haven't.
I bet he loved that.
Yeah. And it was a sort of, why don't you do it then? Process, really. And I don't know if I intended to stay. And I don't think I expected. The business has seen sort of 600% growth since that point. And we've invested significantly in new infrastructure. We've built new glass, and really got a couple of really impressive sites and a really, really good customer portfolio now. So I think the business as it is now is such a different set up to what I signed up for, and then I'm not really ever sure I signed up for it in the first place, but we are I'm very proud. Yeah, and I'm very proud of what we've achieved with that business, and to be able to work with my family has its moments, but most of the times
Fantastic.
So when
quite
you,
nice
you
place.
say it's a family business, how many of you family
So my dad, my brother, and my mum are my fellow directors. My brother's wife is also part of the business.
Okay.
My husband will occasionally contribute to a spreadsheet, but there's normally a price of contribution, and that price is normally me and him bickering and him ending up being right.
Of course.
So yeah, so there's occasional outside contributions from the spouses, and certainly my brother's wife is a big part of our team.
Oh, wonderful.
Brilliant. So I'm hoping by now that our audience know all about the YPHA, but if not, perhaps you could just give us a little bit of an explanation about who they are and how it came about.
Yeah, of course. The YPHA, the Young People in Horticulture Association, and we've actually, and I don't think anyone's known this, but we've just tipped over 1,000 members. In the past,
Heard it here first.
Yeah, in the past few days, the membership, and that's 1,000 current
brilliant.
members. So that doesn't include those who've left the industry or who've aged out as well.
Yeah,
because we do kick people out when they get past the threshold. But so originally we always said it brought together the scatterings of younger people, but with membership like 1,000, I don't think we can call it scatterings exactly. So anybody under any part of the banner of horticulture, we have people who print labels, we have people who build packaging to post plants out, we have botanists, we have a lot of people who work in soil sciences, anything that becomes part of horticulture. Anyone who is 35 or under can join, and they stay till the end of their 36th year. So 1988, your days are numbered.
Right. Oh no.
Yeah. But we have.
Sad.
I know. We have online learning seminars. We have face-to-face events a couple of times a year. Anytime like this, where we're already at an event with our day jobs, there's a lot of opportunities to meet up. There's normally crazy golf involved when it's But we've had people at a garden press event this year. A new employee who just joined the business she was in came up to us and said, "Thanks so much for. I already knew who I was going to have my lunch with before I set off today."
That's great.
So it's very much bringing together younger people, uniting their voices, providing opportunities, networking, and a lot of that happens in this sort of hive mind. It used to be WhatsApp, has now moved across to Discord so that we could segregate conversation, because 1,000 people trying to talk at the same time. It was
not much.
But a lot of people, and particularly Ruth Goody from Kiln Farm, once said to me, if I have a question about horticulture now, I don't Google it. I ask YPHA, because their answers are almost as quick and more up to date, because in our membership, no matter how niche the topic that you're covering, we have a girl who calculates how much dye you put in a golf course pond to turn the water blue but not the swans. So the knowledge set
real
is
niche knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. So pretty much any question you can come up with, someone in that membership, that's there.
And it's going to be up to date, it's going to be relevant,
For sure.
and they're going to know, rather than kind of asking on Facebook or something, you get 100 different answers.
Exactly. And it's so empowering for young people
That's
to be able
great.
to find an answer without having to turn to a superior or a senior.
And then know that maybe going to be your turn next to answer that question, to answer
for
someone's
sure.
question.
The person who answers the question gets the pride of having known the answer. Everybody who's reading the conversation learns the same, the same thing, and that person gets an answer without having had to sort of report to.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and you all have your niche.
Yeah. And everyone's niche is just as valuable as everyone else's.
Yeah, just different.
I think there's been so much in horticulture that's been like, we've got a problem, but let's learn more about plants. And there's so many problems, especially when we look at our customer now versus our customer 30 years ago. So much of what we need to do now is not about learning more about plants. So I think that's a big part of it. Is it's not just the hort science skills, it's the lateral skills, is what I always say.
Oh, interesting. So moving on, an exciting initiative has been the Launch Success Programme, and we had Boyd Douglas Davis on the show talking all about it. Can you tell us how it all came about and what it involves?
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I just said in the previous answer.
Right, okay.
Launch Success Challenge, LSC was originally Lateral Skills Challenge, so we knew it was something we wanted to do to promote those lateral skills.
So can I just stop you? When you say lateral skills, what are we talking about?
So anything that isn't directly related to the quality of the plant being produced.
So we're talking computer IT,
writing a press release,
packaging, marketing. Right.
Everything that we're expected to do in the remit of our day jobs, and actually defines how successful we are at some of the things we do. Every sales rep has to take photos and send them to customers. No one ever teaches them how to take a photo.
No, that's very true. Very true.
Every new product development process involves press releases that nobody's ever learned. Nobody's ever taught anybody.
No.
I was quite, I hope, a part of the process in lockdown of having garden centres reclassified as essential businesses. And I did a lot of press work at that time. And then after I'd done all the press work, the HCA paid for me to have media training. And I realised how vulnerable I had been when I was out there talking to all these, you know, in the Times, the Telegraph, the big name.
Yeah, the biggies.
The scope in what they'd asked me to do versus how much training I'd had for that was terrifying, really, but only retrospectively was it terrifying. And there's so much of what I've had to do in my career that I've just made up as I've gone along.
Right.
And sometimes that's been a huge advantage for me to not know how horticulture already expected something to be done. So the LSC, the Launch Success Challenge, was exactly that, really. I spent a lot of time in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, their plant marketing is very descriptive.
Yes.
You'll get things called purple with white edge. And then I'm asked to promote this product. Why is this product not landing well with a younger customer? Well, it's called White Improved. And I understand the need for that sort of separation. But if we're going to appeal to a younger person, we need to be more dynamic. We need to be more communicable to anyone, really. Names need to be memorable, inspiring, exciting. And it's not just names, it's the whole process. So how could we show what happens if you liberate people a little bit of the expectations of how horticulture would normally do something and equip them with some of the skills that I wish I'd been taught.
Right.
So they've had touch points throughout with some of my very favourite mentors, but people who are very open-minded. They've been told the practicalities where they've needed to know them. But for the most part, it's been, this is how I've faced a similar challenge, but you have free reign to do it however you like. And I can't tell you too much about any of the output, but some of the things that they've done, I think, wow, why have we never thought of that?
Right.
And 10 years in, I'm already a little bit restricted in my thinking because I think, well, that's not how horticulture does it. That's not how horticulture works. Or even to the point of, I get so sick of people saying it, but we tried that once and it didn't work. Yeah, for sure. It's a very different world out there now and a very different customer out there now. So
very much so.
I think I answered the question somewhere in there.
How many people are involved in the Launch Success Challenge?
So we've got 10 delegates, and we took them to the Netherlands as a team of 10.
So all the pictures.
And then came back and we ran personality profiling with more people. And Boyd and I and Andy Abbey from Bacon Camp had spent the time on the trip with those 10, and we sort of sat and divided them out into 2 teams, and we've got quite a passionate, more headstrong team, and we've got a more sort of I don't know how to describe them. They're just so positive, and so there's quite different dynamics in the 2 teams. And I'm really excited.
You did that on purpose. That's quite interesting. I've never heard of that. People doing that before.
No, it was. Because the whole thing with this process is I want to create progress for those 10 people, but I also want the industry to see what happens when you take off the blinkers of how something should be done.
Right.
Intentionally one team's a little bit more feisty and headstrong and has to learn really to make room for other voices, and the other team has to learn not to always agree with everyone else's. They're always like, that's a great idea to everything anyone says.
Yes, very optimistic.
Exactly.
But very agreeable to.
For sure. So one group of people that have sort of had to learn to stand up for themselves a bit more, and one that have had to make room a little bit more for other ideas. So I think they would know which one I'm talking about in each instance. I think they would know, I'm that team or the other team. But group of 10, and then they've had, like I say, a trip to the Netherlands with Boyd and Andy and Nick Mathias from Flora Media. So they had a label factory tour over there, and then they had a behind the scenes tour at the breeding facility at Bacon Camp and met the plant breeder. 2 days prior, we'd had an email saying that Bacon Camp weren't allowing anyone behind the scenes anymore, and Andy had to put in an email and say, I've got people booked on flights, and they were like, okay, that's them, and that's it. So we were the last people to.
And why was
that? Do you know?
Because it's so competitive. So if they're competitors knew that they were working on a begonia with it's not a true example, but a slightly bigger flower or a slightly redder flower or whatever. Even that knowledge is top secret confidential.
Corporate espionage.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
So we were the very last people behind the scenes at Bacon Camp, and they also went to Flora Media Photography Studios and learned how to frame a photo, how to build a backdrop. So some of the things, like I mentioned, that I've never been taught and really wish I hadn't had to figure out for myself.
Right. So what's the eventual outcome?
So the product, which is a begonia, and that's as much as is known of the product, it is a begonia, will be launched at Gardeners World Live 2025. So they've now, they've had the Netherlands trip, they've had half a day with Michael Perry, half a day with Jane Lawler, half a day with Eve Kerrigan, and half a day with Jenny Kwan, who's Glee's head of design.
Right.
So some outside input, some very fresh opinions. Michael and Eve are both very ideas-y. And then Jenny and Jane are both very practical, but logical. And then they they've had some online sessions in how to calculate costings. They've got online sessions coming up in how to deliver a product pitch or different means of delivering a product pitch. And then in October, they have half a day per team with Boyd. Boyd Douglas Davis, where he's going to finesse their pitches, and the next day they've got to deliver them to sponsors. Gardeners World Live will be there, Bacon Camp will be there, Flora Media, British Garden Centres, who are a partner retailer on the project, and each team will pitch their version of the product, and I think realistically a combination of the two will be taken forward, but it could potentially be a landslide victory. So they'll pick a label, a name, a photograph, then there'll be some wild card criteria in there as well. So that's 5 weeks off as we film this. That
amazing! Oh my goodness!
This,
So can I ask, how is this funded?
So we have raised the funds from across a number of businesses. Peter Moore, who's a wonderful choicey breeder, breeds some Budleyers and some other categories as well, has been the headline sponsor.
Right.
And then there's been a number of other smaller sort of delegate sponsors as well. And the programme will reinvest funds in itself.
Right.
So the sales of the product will hopefully contribute to a future rotation.
Another one.
So we had this big fundraising need without anybody having ever seen what we were trying to do.
Right.
So it was an untested format.
How do you fundraise for something that you don't really know is going to happen?
Yeah, I think it was one of the proudest moments of my career, though, especially when that headline sponsorship came in, when we got that email from Peter saying that I'll back you, I like your ideas and I'll back you. It was like, but real passion project for me.
It sounds it.
And I think it could be a real catalyst for the industry approaching things a little bit differently, especially the plant side of the industry, because I think Glee shows the rest of the industry can be more open-minded. Yeah. But the plant side of things, we've all come across red with white eye.
Well, while we talk about Glee, how long have you been coming to Glee, and which of your hats do you wear most? Your nursery hat or your YPHA hat?
I think I always wear both hats. I think I've been coming to Glee 8 years, which means that at least 4 of them were exclusively Happy Plants, because YPHA didn't exist until more recently. We've done stands here as a business, and I've also done a stand here as YPHA previously as well. So I'm always wearing both. I think I'm far more likely to turn a Happy Plants conversation into a YPHA one. Right. I think we're all a little bit careful about ever using YPHA for marketing. I don't think it would be the right integrity really. But I'm normally always if I'm talking to somebody and I think they are category. Somebody that was trying to sell us a floor sweeper at Four Oaks last week got recruited. One girl over in the Netherlands at week 24 flower trials said to me this year, "You've already done this to me last year." When I said to her, "Why don't you look to join?" She was like, we literally had this conversation this time last year. So
and you've still not joined.
Exactly.
So that's why having that.
It's free. You get a T-shirt. We're nice people. I think everybody should join.
So what are the benefits to YPHA
it's
members?
Free. You get a free T-shirt.
No, coming to Glee.
Coming to Glee. I'm sorry.
What's the benefits?
What benefits for YPHA
and you said
members?
you used to have a stand. Why haven't we got one?
We do still have.
You have got one.
We've had what we've called a market research point this year, which is in the Green Heart with the plants. Okay. So a couple of the launch successes have been here the last couple of days, conducting market research with plant buyers. So in that area, so figuring out if the price point they've pitched and whatnot's the right fit. We're very resource limited. We're volunteers. Whilst LSC is a self-funded project, and we reached out to some of those sponsors that I've mentioned previously, YPHA itself has a funding model, but we're adamant that funding should be spent on the whole membership. And it's a lot of that goes on getting people to trade shows, and covering hotel costs.
Yes.
I mean, we bunk in, we can end up with 3 or 4 of us in a room, but there's normally a hotel room. It really is.
You're in with your son.
I am in with my son out here. Yeah.
We have to be really quite careful with how we spend that money, as I say, especially because the bulk of it needs to be reserved for using on the membership. We have to weigh it up quite carefully which ones we opt in and out of. And I think that's true of opportunities in general. I think in its infancy, Molly and I in particular have been guilty of saying yes to everything, and burning ourselves out. And in reality, we're better to pick a few things and do it well. And I think we're the same with trade shows now. National Plant Show in particular is a really good show for us. And here we can have quite a good presence walking around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, most of the younger people here are manning stands, so we can walk around and recruit them that way. We'll get them, don't worry.
So how easily do you think the YPHA has been accepted into the industry, and especially by the older generation? And have you found that there are still some tough nuts to crack?
There's a couple, but the overwhelming majority, it's been with open arms and with a big boost, a big leg up.
Good.
No, it's great. When I say that the funds are limited, we very rarely have to pay speakers. We very rarely have to cover cost of event rooms. It's normally something that people make available to us, knowing that it's going to do good to the whole industry.
Brilliant.
I think we have a few, I always say the rising tide lifts all boats. So if the industry invests a little bit in their own business, even if that person leaves their own business, that person's going to lift the industry. And I think it's only really narrow-mindedness about stuff like that I think there's some preconceptions, because we do have fun. And we
not allowed to have fun,
exactly. But we also learn a heck of a lot as well, and we achieve quite a lot. I don't want to say academically, but we do. There's so much learning in what we're doing. I think it's it's difficult to break the previous iterations of the group. And similar groups back to YGCA days. I think there's some people that have carried their opinions of those historic versions.
It's very easy to get stuck and to think you know better, and you've done it, used to do it that way. Don't need to change.
The headline is that the industry absolutely supports YPHA. There's so many people that have contributed so much.
But we have to, otherwise there'll be no industry left, in 10, 20 years time. There'll be nobody running the nurseries. I
don't think there's a person that hasn't said at some point that they struggle finding a younger workforce. So I don't think they can say that and also not back what we're trying to do.
So as yourself, one of the co-founders, and your other co-founders get older, and you'll be passing the age limit and passing on your roles, will that age limit start to creep up?
Absolutely not. No, I mean, Liam is the oldest of the 3 of us who formed YPHA. He's a year older than me, so he's got this year and another 3. I've got this year and another 4. Molly's only a baby. I think she's got this year and another 7 or 8. Although she's just had a baby, so whether this will remain a priority will be set to be seen. But they're already coming through. On my Launch Success project, we've got 2 girls who've just hit 20. And already showing the initiative to apply to a program like that. You can see future leaders forming. But I think it's imperative that we pass it on. I think once we're older, we won't be. And even now, sometimes some of the stuff that Launch Successes say, I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to use TikTok. I'm already becoming out of touch with some of what's required to do what we're trying to do. But also, I think, it would get stale if it became the few of us. But we're actually, I think, today announcing some support roles for the committee, which would almost be like not junior committee at all, because it might be people older, younger, whatever, but we can see that becomes backup.
For when you finally...
It's there. It's in the calendar.
Just not yet. Not yet.
Just not yet. Just not yet.
No.
Stop now.
So you obviously have loads of passion and knowledge in what you do, but are we looking at a next potential HTA or GMA president? Do you think? What does the future hold for you?
If you'd told me where I am now 4 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. You know, YPHA, when it first formed, I think we had 30 members on the way into lockdown, and it was just right place at the right time. It was the right solution at the time. The industry needed a beacon of this is what I'm going through. This is the person that might be able to help you out of their situation. And I don't think you can say what the world's going to look like in 4 or 5 years. I won't pretend that I haven't been made aware that there will be expectations on membership to other. I turned down quite a lot of panels and committees and whatnot. And, there's a couple of them that have held me to a date that when we get past that point and I step back from YPHA, my name will be on the list for some other opportunities. But it was, I think as long as we stay true to the mission of what we're trying to achieve, and have integrity in what we do, then we'll end up in the right place, wherever that might be.
Wonderful.
So you've talked a lot about what the younger generation have to offer and the kind of other skills that you bring. From that perspective as an industry professional, is there one thing you would change about Glee and make it more accessible?
I really don't know if there is. It's very much in my day job. This isn't my show. This show isn't for me.
Okay.
Because I'm very much, Forex last week is my suppliers.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
And it's nice to look around. And I think, like I said earlier, it's really refreshing to see that the rest of the industry is a little bit more up to date with some of what they're doing, and I can take marketing concepts from here and show them to retailers and say, you're doing this with pots, why can't you do it with what I'm doing? I think plants being back in the hall is a great move. Looking forward to seeing how that develops. It's not my show. It's not for me, but I've really enjoyed today having a wander around and seeing just the breadth of the industry is represented here better than anywhere else.
Absolutely.
Have you seen the talent store?
Yes, it looks amazing.
Oh, yes.
See, that's how you merchandise plants.
Yeah,
really
for
well.
sure. Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad to have seen some of my buyers walking around here, so that I'll be able to feed back to them. Did you see that? And do we think we can do X, Y, Z with that?
Oh, fantastic.
For context and breadth, there's value in me visiting as a grower. And hopefully in a couple of years there'll be value in me visiting as a plants displayer, I guess, as a plant display.
Merchandiser.
Yeah. Merchandiser, is that right?
Yeah, I think you would merchandise plants. Yeah, I'm sure you would.
I don't think that's something people do at the moment as much as it is.
Well, especially with the Forex always being so close, that's a lot to do, isn't it? Both in one go, goodness.
A bit of visual theatre.
Yes, exactly. That's it.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Well, I think we've pretty much wrapped up everything we needed to talk to you about. Yeah, so thank you so much, Nat, for coming in and speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.